This is lesson 19, part 1, and we'll be learning about ties.
We can add time or duration to any note or rest value simply by adding a dot to it. This dot will always be worth half of whatever note or rest it is dotting. So for example, we can take a whole note, we can put a dot to the right of the note head, and this is now called a dotted whole note, and this will be worth the value of a whole note plus, well, half of whatever it's dotting, so the dot will be worth a half note, since a half note is worth half of a whole note. We can take a half note and we can put a dot to the right of the note head. This is now a dotted half note, and it's worth a half note plus the value of the dot, which in this case then is going to be worth half of a half note, so a quarter note. We can take a quarter note, put a dot to the right of the note head. This is now a dotted quarter note, and it's worth a quarter note plus half of its value, so an eighth note. And we can take an eighth note, and we can put a dot to the right of the note head. This is now a dotted eighth note, and it's worth an eighth note plus half of its value. So in this case, it would be a 16th note. So practically, what would this look like? Well, we can say, for example, that an eighth note and an eighth rest will be worth 1 beat each. So let's just apply that to our note value pyramid here. 1 beat for eighth notes, which means 2 beats for quarter notes, 4 beats for half notes, and 8 beats for whole notes, and then half a beat for each 16th note. And let's just do some math here. So the whole note would be worth 8 beats plus 4 beats for the half note. So it's going to be a total of 12 beats for a dotted whole note in this scenario. A half note will be worth 4 beats plus 2 beats for the quarter note. So that's a total of 6 beats for this dotted half note. Notice that the dotted whole note is worth exactly twice as much as the dotted half note, just like our whole note is worth twice as much as our half note, undotted. Let's look at the next example. So a quarter note will be worth 2 beats in this scenario, plus 1 beat for the eighth note, so a total of 3 beats. Notice that a dotted half note is worth exactly twice as much as a dotted quarter note, just like an undotted half note is worth twice as much as an undotted quarter note. And then our eighth note is worth 1 beat plus half a beat for 16th note, so a total of 1.5 beats. Again, you're seeing the pattern, I'm sure. The dotted quarter note is worth twice as much as a dotted eighth note, just like a quarter note is worth twice as much as an eighth note.
In everyday life, we measure time in seconds, minutes, and hours, and in music, we measure time or duration in beats and subdivisions of those beats. The proportion between seconds, minutes, and hours is fixed. So if 1 hour has gone by, we can know that 60 minutes have gone by and that 3,600 seconds have gone by. We can choose to track time by seconds, minutes, or hours, depending on which is most helpful or appropriate given the circumstance. Similarly, in music, the proportion between beats and subdivisions of those beats into, say, half beats and quarter beats is similarly fixed. So if 1 beat has gone by, we can know that 2 half beats have gone by and that 4 quarter beats have gone by. We can choose to track duration or time in music by beats or subdivisions of those beats, depending on which is most helpful or appropriate given the circumstance. Remember that beat is a recurring pulse in music. Similar to a second hand on a clock, it is predictable and it is independent of anything else going on around it. In music, when we talk about rhythm, we're talking about when we should start and stop certain notes or sounds, and when we should start and stop silences or rests. Well, beat is not actually visible on a score. Rhythm is visible on the score. So when we see different note and rest values on a page of music, those are representing the rhythm. They're telling us when to start and stop pitches or sounds and when to start and stop silences. Well, beat is independent of anything else going on around it. Rhythm is completely dependent on a pulse or a beat to be realized. So for the time being, I would still encourage you to try to put the beat into some part of your body, whatever is most comfortable. So either your hands, or if it's more comfortable for you just to tap your foot or march in place, that's totally acceptable as well. And we're putting, for now, the rhythm we see or that I dictate to you into your mouth, or you can put it into your instrument on a single note if that's more productive for you. A review of the Gordon rhythm syllables we'll be using as we speak our rhythms. For a 1-beat note, we'll be saying do. If we have a multi-beat note, like a 2-beat, 3-beat, 4-beat, etc. note, we're just going to say the do and then hold it for the remaining beats. So do would be a 3-beat note. Half-beat notes will be represented in pairs by do, day. And then quarter beat notes, where we divide the beat into 4 equal parts, and each of these syllables is worth just a quarter of a beat, is going to be do, ta, day, ta.
Returning to Rhythm Workshop by Sally K. Albrecht. Returning to exercise 7 in the 4-4 section of the book. We'll be looking at example 5. So first looking at the time signature, remember that the top number tells us that there are 4 beats per measure. And the bottom 4 we can think of as the denominator of a fraction. That reminds us that a quarter note will be our beat or our pulse note. And we can go over to our note and rest value pyramids and just apply that 1 beat for quarter notes, 2 beats for half notes and half rests, 4 beats for whole notes and whole rests, half a beat for 8th notes and 8th rests. So looking at our example here, I can see that a quarter note and a quarter rest are our smallest note values, so we can just get away without subdividing beyond the beat or pulse note. We could just think in do's. So I'm going to set the metronome at 80, put this beat into your feet or your hands. Remember to continue to feel that pulse inside yourself during the rests. 1, 2, ready, clap. 1, 2, ready, speak. Do, 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 do. Do, do, do. Do, 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 do.
Remember that both lesson 15 and 18 were devoted entirely to practicing together. Each consisted of 4 parts. I would encourage you to use those videos, review them as helpful, review any of the exercises we've covered in Rhythm Workshop so far as often as you can to develop fluency and ease.
We are returning to Jay Althaus's Ready to Read Music. We're in Unit 2, which is the rhythm unit, Lesson 8 on ties. So reading together, suppose we wanted to play one note here that lasts for 2 beats. Okay, so before we do anything else, we need to figure out what our time signature is telling us. We're in 3/4 time. The top number tells us that there are 3 beats in each measure, and the bottom 4 we can think of as the denominator of a fraction, and that reminds us that a quarter note is going to be our beat or pulse note. So a quarter note or quarter rest will receive 1 beat. So let's just quickly go to our note and rest value pyramids and apply that. 1 beat for quarter notes, 2 beats for half notes, 4 beats for whole notes, half a beat for 8th notes. Okay, continuing to read. A half note gets 2 beats, so could we put a half note here? Let's first of all go through and just count up the beats in each measure. So in this first measure, we get 2 beats for the half note, and then our third beat, our third do, will fall right here on the quarter note. Another way of marking that would be 1, 2, 3. And then we have another half note, so 1, 2 beats, and we could go like this. And now they're suggesting perhaps we could put a half note there. Well, that's an extra 2 beats, and 2 plus 2 is 4. So no, that's not going to work because it's too many beats. We actually only have room right here for a 1 beat note. Let's move on to the next measure. So we have 1 beat for this quarter note, 1 beat for this quarter note. So actually we're also going to need to fill this in with a 1 beat note. So a half note would be ideal. 1 plus 1 equals 2, but we can't do it because the bar line's in the way. And then for our final measure, we have a dotted half note. Well, the half note itself is going to be worth 2 beats, and its dot is worth half of that value. So it's worth a quarter note, or we can say it's just worth 1 beat. Reading on, he says, no, we can't just use a half note because then there would be too many beats in measure 2. The time signature tells us there must be 3 beats in each measure, and now measure 2 has 4 beats if we use that half note. We can solve this by adding a note with a curved line called a tie. In the last lesson, we learned how to lengthen a note by adding a dot. We can also lengthen a note by tying it to another note on the same line or in the same space, like this. So he shows you this curved line, which is called a tie because it is connecting 2 notes that are in the same space. So here's how to play or sing a note for 2 beats at the end of measure 2. We add a quarter note, so that's our 1 beat note that we needed there, which is tied to the quarter note at the beginning of measure 3. So 1 beat plus 1 beat. These tied quarter notes have the same duration as a half note would, but this is the only way we're able to actually write a 2 beat note when we have a bar line right where we want to put that 2 beat note. The quarter note in measure 2 gets 1 beat, and the quarter note in measure 3 gets 1 beat. When we tie these 2 quarter notes together, they sound for 2 beats, the same as a half note. We're going to go ahead and draw in our beat marks, and we're going to put the metronome on, and we're going to go ahead and say this rhythm so we can see how it works. Our smallest note value is our quarter note, so we can just get away with marking in do's. So 1 beat here, a 2nd beat here, a 3rd beat here. 2 beats for the half note, 1 beat for the quarter note, another beat for the quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, and then 3 beats for this dotted half note. We're going to set the metronome at 80. We're going to clap this beat, or put it into your foot if you prefer. 1, ready, clap. 1, ready, speak. Do, 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 do. So notice because of the tie, I did not say do again here. I held it through just like I would for a half note or for a dotted half note where I hold that do for 3 beats. Musical rule: 2 notes which are tied must be on the same line or in the same space. Ties can cross bar lines just like they did here. Here's your bar line. In fact, that's the most common reason for using them. When we want something like a 2 beat note and only 1 beat will fit in the measure, we can tie it to a note in the next measure. Ties can cross bar lines. Ties go the opposite direction from a note stem. So, for example, we have a note in space 3, another note in space 3. Their stems go down on the left, and the tie goes on top, opposite direction as the stems. Not like this. It would go like this. 2 notes, both of them on line 2. Stems go up and to the right, and their tie will go opposite of that. Not like this.